It is a huge, huge honor today to be interviewing a guy in my backyard. Thank you so much for coming over today.
This is awesome.
And we're mourning today the loss of the Arizona Cardinals, and they're not going to be in the Super Bowl. Are you gonna live or?
I'm going to survive.
You're going to survive?
A Green Bay Packer fan. So
are you?
I've been crying for 2 weeks now.
That was a wild game. My God, that was the
game.
sloppiest win I've ever seen the Arizona Cardinals win. But I called you. You didn't call me. You're in my backyard. I know. I hear just amazing things about you all the time.
Yes.
So let me read your bio. Scott has been coaching dental teams since 2001. He was an astonishing record of doubling the net income of most of his clients within 18 months. Scott is more than a dental consultant. He is a coach with an eye for results. Scott has 15 years experience in corporate America, where he was in charge of a litigation unit for State Farm Insurance. He rose to the highest position in the field as a manager and was in charge of an annual budget of a $130 million operation. Scott leveraged the business skills from this experience as a business manager for a multi-office dental corporation. Later, Scott worked as an executive coach for Tony Robbins and is currently a trainer for the organization. And I guess Tony will be here Monday.
Yeah, he will be.
He's got a show Monday.
Yeah.
Scott Day is a certified Behavioral and Motivators Analyst expert with a certified master practitioner in Neuro-Linguistic programming. Scott loves training dental teams on communication skills and leadership skills that count. Scott is a great, dynamic, and entertaining speaker. You need a speaker for your organization. This is one that the entire staff will love. He has spoken 3 times to the Russian Dental Clinics Delegation. That's had to be cool. Did you? How many shots of vodka did you have when you were in Russia?
Absolutely none.
Really? None? Oh, my God. When I go there, it seems like they all drink vodka. He holds a BA degree from the University of Wisconsin and a law degree from the University of Toledo. Scott enjoys golfing and is a basketball and football official. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So what did you want to talk to my homies about today? What?
Yeah, I want to talk about really setting accurate goals. Because I go into offices all the time, and they say, we have to have goals. And I go, well, yeah, you have to have goals, but how are you setting these goals, and how are they really doing it? If I had to really put it down, really what goals are results. You want a result. And so to get that result, it has to be attached to some type of action plan. So to really say, okay, we want to have a production goal of $80,000 a month, that's great, but it's pie in the sky. How does it happen? How do you get to $80,000? Maybe you look at the previous years in that particular month and say, we did it every year for the last 3 years, and that's why we're setting this goal. But you really have to have some kind of action plan behind that. And really what it is, Howard, is when you have an action plan behind that, the smallest goal can create massive results. And so when I go into a dental office, I just was in an office last week. I'm going to use them as an example. I'm going to show you the numbers. They had appointing a head in hygiene, for example. They've got 1,200 active patients, meaning that was 1,200 patients individually came into their office last year in hygiene. That's an active patient. Everything else is not an active patient. That's flybys, as I call them. They just come in, get a toothpick, and get out. I want to talk about active patients. And in this office, they had only 300 people appointed to head in hygiene. That's 25% of their active patients. So, and I'm telling them, well, the best practice is somewhere between 90% and 95%. But if I told the team, you need to go from 25% to 90%, they would go, it's like a computer downloading and doesn't have to download. It just shuts down. It just can't do it. So I told them, how about 10%? Month after month after month after month. And you'll see the results in a moment when I talk about that. It's exponential. And so anybody can handle 10%. No one can handle 75%, right? So that's what I do. That's how I do it. I go in offices and I say, let's get clear about where we're at. Let's look at the gaps in your office, and let's set goals that have meaning to them with an action plan that's clearly and easily attainable by the whole team.
And what other kinds of goals do you like setting in offices?
It depends. See, here's the key. And here's what I think has made me very successful. There's no two practices the same. So I don't have the same thing for each practice at all. It's different for every office. It depends on where they are and what they're doing. I've been to major cities like Miami, LA, and I've been to rural communities like Vernon, Utah, which is like 3 hours east of Salt Lake City. So I've been all over these little places and things, and they're all different, and they all need some kind of attainable goal to reach their outcomes. We have to get to a point where we realize, like, what the heck? We go to work day after day, week after week, year after year, and it seems to blend in. I remember of course, everybody remembers when they were in high school and college, you got new classes, new instructors, and new classmates here every 6 months. And so everything was different and changing. But when you're in a working world, everything just kind of blends and seems the same. And so we really start focusing on those specific goals and making those goals work for each individual office. There's no two offices the same. Never seen it, never will, and I never practice that way.
And I also thought the consultants have such a huge major advantage because, like, you've been doing this for decades, and you get to see hundreds of different offices.
Yes.
Whereas doctor only sees his office, and they oftentimes don't even see the possible, or they just think this is just how it is.
Yeah.
And you get to see all these huge distribution of best practices. And another thing in your intro, you said that you like to double their net income within a year and a half. And I see people arguing on Dental Town where be two practices that collect $1 million in their, or a guy says, well, my office produced $1 million, so it's worth $1 million. And the consultant's like, well, yeah, you did $1 million, but you only netted $100,000.
Right.
And here's a practice that only did $400,000, but it netted $200,000, and
right.
Thus it's worth twice as much as your $1 million practice. And so if someone called you up or went to your website is fastforwarddentistry.com, right?
Correct.
And if they want to email you, it's scott@fastforwarddentistry.com. But if they said to you, my overhead's high, I would like to increase my net income, not my gross, but my net income. What would you tell them? What's usually going wrong when they aren't making net income?
Well, when they talk about net income, we're really talking about cash flow, and the cash flow is part, and the overhead's part of the creating that cash flow. And what I see, Howard, when I come in and I'll do a practice performance profile, is what I call it, the PPP. And I take a look at everything in the office, right? I from everything from the front office to the back office, what they're doing, all the procedures and everything that's going on. And I find this just gaps in between where they are and where they really want to be. And for example, typically, right, I want to use one example right now, and that is what I call new patient retention. So I'll go in an office, and I'll go a year previous, whatever month I'm in. Let's say it's January. I'll go to the previous year in January. I'll look for a report that shows me all the new patients that came that month, just that month a year ago, right? And I want to make sure that they had a comprehensive exam and they did go and have a prophy and they're in the prophy schedule. Then what I'll do is I'll track them. I'll see if they came in the 6 months, and then I'm looking for them to have an appointment a year later. You know what I find? And it blows people's mind every single time. Every single office I've gone into has been somewhere between 35 and 50% of new patient retention. And they think they're like 80, 90% when I ask them. It's really, really a low thing. And we'll have this discussion in the conversation. I always do it. Say, what's the most important date of a new patient? They'll go, oh, the first phone call. Oh, no. The first time they come in, we want to wow them. Oh, no. When they see the doctor, all these kind of things. And I'm going, no. The most important date of a new patient is the very first anniversary. Why, you ask me that? I would say, okay, they've seen the doctor, they've seen the hygienist, and then they reschedule 6 months later for their hygiene if they're not perio, right? and maybe they've seen the doctor in between there, and then 6 months later is a year, and they're back in that office. They're back in that office on their anniversary date. It's over. They're done shopping. They're your patient. And I don't know what you've read, but I've read a lot of things about how long a patient stays with a dentist. And the longest they stay with a dentist on average is 19 years, right? So it's like they're done shopping. That's the most important day. I even have a team that sends an anniversary card.
That's cool.
To every single one of their patients on their first year anniversary date, which is really fantastic. That's the most important date. And so when I go in, to answer your question now, when I go in and see that 35 to 50%, we're making changes on that. You know, we're now they're tracking every new patient all the way along the way to see what they're doing and how they can improve, and making those, giving them surveys and saying, how are we doing? Give us feedback, and making sure that they're back in the hygiene schedule and they're coming on a regular basis.
That is interesting, because I don't know if it's because we're social animals and we don't like rejection. They probably don't want to track how many people reject you. I mean, I remember in college, my roommates would, you could sit at a bar all night and they'd just stare at the girls. They would never go ask one to dance because they were afraid she'd say no. So they probably don't want to track how many people say no, and I never came back. So what do you think keeps the patient in the office on a 1 year anniversary versus all the ones that didn't come back?
That's a great question, and I think it really is the team, the entire team, and how we communicate to the patient. That is really the key. How we prep them. I would love to hear all the time, and I don't hear this all the time, of just doing pre-framing. What I mean by that is letting the patient know what our expectations are of them, and are they on board with that, right? And if they are on board with that, they're locked in. So if a doctor came in for the first time to talk to a patient and say, thank you, welcome to our practice, we're so glad to have you here. You were referred by X, she's a wonderful person, she's been with us for years. And here's how it works in our office. We expect every single one of our patients to come for their hygiene, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, every year, from now until forever. And that, because we really take seriously your health care, including your whole body. Now, if you agree, do you agree with that? Will you promise to come in at that time? And so the patient has a commitment to make, right then and there. And if the patient's on board, they're going to do it. If the patient's not on board, then you'll know immediately that this patient's shopping around or doing whatever. And really, it's the commitment of the whole entire office to get really focused. Because the value of the patient, you know what the value of a new patient is if you just looked at it over a 20-year period of time and just doing just a little bit? It's over $60,000 a year. So if $60,000 walked into your office.
But the problem, Scott, that we have is that the front office didn't go to school for a day on being the front office. The dentist went to school for 8 years, and we spent all of our time learning calculus, physics, geometry. And I don't know anything I ever used from a math class, and I mean, I really don't. So how do you go into an office where, you know, my assistant dental assisting school is 1 year, my hygienist 4 years, me 8 years, the front office 0 years, and almost all my training is in the Krebs cycle and the periodic table, which has had no value. So what do you do as a consultant when you go in there to get this culture going?
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably the difference in terms of what I do. I coach the entire team. And it literally is coaching. It is rewarding them and complimenting them when they're doing great things, and literally kicking them in the butts when they don't. And really, it's all about communication. It's all about focus. And the number one thing I would say about every time I come into a new practice and talk about it, every time I go to every practice, is that the outcome for every single practice is to create raving patients, where they just run out of your office and want to tell everybody about how great your practice is, and then you should come to this practice. And so in order to create that, we have to really focus on the communication for the entire team. So I spend a lot of time with the entire team teaching them how to become awesome, great, fantastic communicators. I start with the DISC. You might have heard that, the DISC, and their behavior style, and literally walk through the whole team and let them get to know each other in a different way of what their behavior style is, which teaches them how to be a better communicator with their patients and communicate with their style. So all of a sudden, right, we start talking about, I hear all this stuff about case acceptance and how you can go your case acceptance to whatever. When we know the behavior style of patients, when we really know the behavior style of patients, some patients will sign up right away, and some patients need to go back based on their behavior style only, and maybe it's their finances, but based on their behavior style only, and go back and say, hey, look, I want to think about this. I want to do some research on this. I've never had a root canal before. I'll get back to you in 2 or 3 weeks. And that's okay. That's great. And that's when that's when the patient like really appreciates the us being our dental offices and dental practices appreciate and understand and view the world through their eyes. That's what we really do.
So Scott, when you're looking at thousands of dentists right now,
right?
And I know my homies. I mean, I know them because I am a dentist.
Yeah.
And every time their office is collapsing and every time they're not profitable, they always think the best money spent is on a shiny new toy. They'll go buy a $130,000 CAD cam. They'll go buy a $75,000 laser, a $100,000 X-ray machine. And then when you say, well, why not? Like, how much do you charge? What is your cost if someone wanted you as to help them?
Yeah, I charge $2,000 a month plus expenses.
Okay, so a $75,000 laser would buy 3 years of consulting.
Right.
And what I and I know I sound like a broken record, but what I feel sorry for you is that everybody who's trying to go from 1 million to 2 or 2 million to 3, they use consultants all the time.
That's right.
And then everybody who needs them the most, they'll never get help. Or they'll go buy a new shiny toy. So I want you to try to connect. You charge $2,000 a day, or what do you charge?
A month.
$2,000 a month. Mm-hmm. What do you think will help them double their net income more? $2,000 a month, you coaching them, or buying a new shiny toy?
Well, definitely. See, there's so much involved. So definitely having a coach. Think about it. Everybody has a coach. Every athlete has a coach, right? Individually. I mean, golfers have 3 coaches. Every actor has a coach. Everybody's out there because you can't see your blind spots, right? You can't see your blind spots. You need someone to help you say, here's where you are, here's where you want to go because you told me you want to go this way, and here's how we're going to get there. And then you need pushing to get there you can't do it by yourself, so you need pushing, right? Just because you're an owner doctor doesn't mean, and you are responsible for the whole team, doesn't mean that you need to be pushed too, right? So that is really the key, is really getting someone to push you and to get you in the direction you want to go. The shiny things, you're right. The shiny things look good, but they don't get the patients in. I just showed you from talking about the new patient retention that there's patients going out your back door in every single office I've been in. And so if that's true, then we got to stop that. We got to stop that flow and take a look and do that. Dentists are so busy during the day, and by the time they're done, they're so tired and beat, they just want to go home and relax, right? You need a coach to help your entire team. I coach the entire team. I just don't coach the doctor. I coach the doctor once a month for an hour over the phone just to connect and get going. But I come into the office on a quarterly basis and coach the entire team.
So they're all multitasking right now. Probably 85% are driving to work. Our brand is an hour long because that's what they all told me they wanted. They have an hour commute. And what's weird about that, you'd think an hour commute would be in LA, but even the rural guys, they live in a town of 5,000. They commute an hour down a 2-lane highway. Yep. So they're down there for an hour. I want them to get help. So try to paint scenarios where this dentist is listening to things you like to go on. I mean, we know a fireman wants to put out a fire and a policeman wants to catch a bad guy. A policeman doesn't want to put out a fire. What are you? What are your fires? Paint scenarios that this is going on in her office and you can come in and fix? What are red flags for her listening to you right now where she's like, that could probably need some work in my office, her?
Well, there's several things. I told you one was pointing ahead and hygiene. It was a really important one, and really getting your active patient base to really be all in on hygiene. That's one of the things.
But do you think she even knows how to run that report?
No, I really don't think so.
I don't think any of them do.
I really don't think so.
Everyone I know that when you go into an office and look at the report generator, 85% of the reports have never been ran one time.
Yeah. And
I mean, do you agree with that?
For some, yeah. I would. As a generalization, yes. Do they care? Absolutely. Do they know their numbers in terms of collections? Absolutely. And are they concerned about their schedule and what's ahead? Absolutely. Those things are really key. But what's circling behind it? I mean, everything's connected, right? So, for example, the number of people that come into hygiene equals the number of people who have new discovered restorative, which is the number of people that gets in the doctor's schedule, which is, the number of people on the collections, and it's the whole thing that combines and gets together. What I said by coaching is you don't know what your blind spots are, and every office is different. And when I go into an office, I'm looking for what's great, because every office does something great, Howard. I don't care what it is. If it's just teeth whitening or Invisalign or, just dealing with kids or dealing with old people or whatever, every single office does something great. And then they also have needs improvement areas. And that's why they hired me, because here's the deal. I can give you strategies. You can look at strategies. There's been plenty of dental consultants that wrote tons of books and articles and stuff on strategies. And if you could just implement the strategies on doing that, bingo, you're golden. But guess what? With the whole team, even though strategy is more important, what's even more important than that, before we can even implement any strategy, is the story everybody in the office has about what can and cannot happen. You can just imagine the stories I hear. Oh, they can't afford that. Oh, I didn't call them because their parents are sick and they won't come in. And all these stories that they create, or we've tried that, it won't work. All these stories I hear. I got to get the entire team past their story first. If I can't get them past their story first, I don't care what strategy I have, it's not going to work. And then once I get them past their story, I got to change their mindset, right? And their mindset is I'm just doing this, get data day in and day out, like we talked about earlier today with regards to every day. When you're working in the business, every day kind of blends into every week turns into a month, every month turns into a year, every year turns into decades. And I got to get them out of mindset, because here's the real truth. For most patients, they come into the office twice a year for hygiene. That's 2 hours out of their entire year. There's 87,000 hours in a year. So 2 hours they're in your office, and you better make a great impression on them, right? Or you better make a great impression on them. Otherwise, they're not gonna function, because that's a really important hour for them. But that could be a routine, another patient hour for you, and that can't happen. It cannot happen. Ever.
So what is it? When I look at my best friends who are crushing it, and they're my age, 53 to 73, they've had half a dozen consultants the last 30 years. And then everybody that needs one doesn't get it. Do you think they don't get it because, do you think it's pride? They don't want you to come in and see that they got it. Do you think it's pride and lack of humility, or do you think it's what do you think it is?
It's some type of fear. Whether
it's fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it's fear.
It's a fear of, this is my baby, I don't want anybody to do an evaluation on me. Or this is the fear. The fear is, I really messed up and I don't want anybody to know. Or it's the fear of, one lady came up to me and said, she heard me speak and she's excited and she needs a coach, and she goes, "You look like you cost too much." And I go, "I don't cost that much. As a matter of fact, I pay my way." because you're going to grow so much that it's going to be easy for you to pay.
No, well, that's interesting. You said you fear, because I like that better than pride or lack of humility. Right. I mean, I've had dentists when they showed me the numbers, they started crying. And it was just like, it was just so stressful for them to show me their report card. You know what I mean? And
exactly.
Oh, Mamimi, Tigger likes you.
She heard me talking.
Hi, Tigger. And yes, we are not a very hygienic family. The cats are allowed on the dinner table. So you think it's the fear of them coming? Because I want it just to get it done. So you think they're this is their baby. It's personal. This is my practice, and now Scott's going to come in and he's going to tell me everything that's wrong with my baby.
Everything is wrong with your baby, and then they have to go and talk to their team and say, "Hey, look, I'm bringing in a consultant, and here's why I'm bringing in a consultant." And you know, the team really has a lot of influence on the doctor in terms of what happens and what doesn't happen. So that conversation is also fear, right? A fear of, you know, being rejected by the team and then bringing someone in, and what if it doesn't work, right? And so I take all that out and say it's month to month.
So you don't have a contract?
No contract. It's a coaching agreement that says I agree to coach you and you agree to pay me these fees. That's all it is.
It's $2,000 a month. And what I liked your earlier about it, you said, well, you know, all athletes have a coach. You know, I've always, and you agree, true or false on this, but what I always thought the best was thing about consultants is when you go back to dental school, when did most all your classmates study? The night before the test.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what coaches do the most is they hold you accountable. I mean, my homies are smart. They got A's in calculus, physics, geometry.
They're smart people.
They're smart people. They memorize the periodic table. But these reports they've never run. But if you're going to call them Monday after work, or you're going to come in their office next Tuesday, I don't think they just, the human nature is they just don't get it into gear until they know, oh, Scott's going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they have to prepare for the test. So what I've always thought about the consultants is I almost think it's 80% accountability to work on my business and 20% is the strategy. I mean, It's not so much the recipe that he's going to teach me how to make lasagna. It's just that we're going in the kitchen tomorrow and we're going to cook dinner. You know, accountability.
Yeah, it absolutely is accountability. I hold them accountable all the time on what they're doing and what they said they were going to do. I ask them what their vision is for the next year, and I hold them to that. You said that this is what you want to do. I mean, I'm working on focusing on your vision and getting the team on board with your vision to get exactly what you want and how you want it. And so that's what I do, and I hold them accountable. And that's why I have the monthly coaching calls with them, because it's really important to have continuous conversation about where we are, what we're doing, how we're doing, what's the results on a monthly basis, right? It's a key thing.
And I've always noticed that when you go to a seminar, half the room sitting over here, and there's only one dentist for 5 people, because the dentist sitting next to the spouse and 2 front office and 2 hygienists and 2 assistants. Right. The other half of the room is just all dentists coming by themselves. And these dentists who bring their whole staff, they're always $1 million practices, yep. 1.5, $2 million. And then these guys all over here are $600,000 a year or less, and they're always saving money by not bringing their deal. So and then when I poll these people and say, what is the number one thing that keeps you up at night and stress you out? It's never how to do a root canal filling a crown. It's always their staff. And then when I say, well, your office isn't performing right, they always say, well, yeah, look, my assistant ain't right in the head, my receptionist, and it's not my fault. So I guess my question is, back to sports. When you go into an office, how many times do you just sit there and say, okay, we're never going to have a winning team with that quarterback, we need to fire her? Or how many times do you go in there and say, no, this person's just not being developed and we just need to educate her and bring her up to speed?
Yeah, I would say the latter. It's usually a couple of things what I really see. Those what you call non-performing offices typically have a pattern. And the pattern is the doctor tells himself that he's not, or herself, that they're not a good leader, and therefore they don't do morning huddles, and therefore they don't compliment the team or reward the team, and therefore they're always running in scarcity about money and about new patients and about their schedule, and it's just this convoluted mess of, nothing's working, and I'm afraid to even try anything new. And yet on the other side, you see morning huddles are a must, and people actually get mad or upset if we don't have a morning huddle. And they also have regular team meetings, and there's also rewards and benefits and all kinds of discounts for the team, and there's even bonuses, and there's all kinds of things that are going on. It's complete opposite. And so when I go in and I have this conversation with the doctors, I say, okay, I'm going to work these calls that I'm having. I'm going to work on your leadership style, right? And I'm going to bring out the best of your leadership style, so you're proud of that, and that you can work with team, because there's no correct or incorrect. There's no good or bad leadership style. It's just your leadership style, and we'll get the team to form with your leadership style, whatever that is. That's how we do it, and that's how I understand it best, to get them motivated, to get them into a positive attitude. They've got to have communication skills to work with their team, and they have to have communication skills to work with their patients.
Scott, when I got out of school in 87, 28 years ago, half of the patients going into a dental office just paid cash, credit card, check.
Right.
And half had indemnity insurance, which was, you would submit the insurance, your fee, and they would pay a %.
Right.
Now, 28 years later, all the insurance is PPO.
Correct.
And a lot of these dentists sit there and say, "Well, Scott, you don't get it. You don't understand, because I'm out here in Parsons, Kansas, and 85% of my practice is a PPO, and they're telling me what my fees are, and I got to work back from those fees, and that's why I have 80% overhead, and I don't have the money to do anything that you're talking about." What do you say? Because in the United States, there's a lot of places just like that.
Yeah, I have a client in Nebraska that is just like that. His practice is 92% PPO, and I'm not afraid of that. He's not afraid of that either. You work with what you got. It's just,
so that's not necessarily a bad thing to you. If that's what it is, that's
no.
what it is.
It is what it is. You can be very profitable with a PPO office as well as a fee-for-service office. There's really actually not a lot of difference. You're just dealing with the insurance. Can you have $1 million practice with a PPO? Absolutely, he does. There's no question he does. And so it's really easy to work with both of those things. I wouldn't object to any one of those ways of doing business. It works both ways. And in that environment in Nebraska, right, where it's a rural community and it's blue collar and everybody's got insurance, they're going to use it. It's the conversation he has with the patient with regards to their insurance. It's an allowance. It's not like your health insurance, right? It's an allowance, allows you to have some of your benefit, some of the procedures that we're going to diagnose paid for, but we're going to take care of your teeth. We're not going to diagnose your mouth based upon your insurance. We're going to diagnose your mouth based upon our view of what needs to get healthy and where you want to be in terms of your teeth. You want a healthy teeth, you want a braided smile, you want straighter teeth. We're going to do that for you, regardless of what that PPO says. And so he changes the mindset of his patients big time.
So what do you think is more important? I have always thought a lot of dentists believe in silver bullets. There's they're going to fix everything with a silver bullet, and it's going to be either buy a laser, buy a CAD cam, or they're going to do a marketing thing and bring in a gazillion new patients. What do you think are the real silver bullets in someone who's saying, I have high overhead, I'm stressed, and I want less stress, more organization, and more net income? What do you think the real silver bullets are?
The real silver bullet, really, honestly, on every single office.
And hopefully you're going to say it's a Coors Light and you brought one. What are the real silver bullets?
Is patient-to-patient referrals. I see it over and over again. The patient-patient referrals bring in the largest amount of production in an office than any other marketing, internal or external marketing there is.
The patient word of mouth referral?
Yes, absolutely.
And how can a practice, what can a practice do to increase those?
Ooh, here it is. And it's a big thing. It's a 3-letter word, and it's tough for people to do this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's my secret. Ask. Just simply ask your patients for patient referrals. That's all you have to do, because they're in a mindset. Remember, we're changing mindsets, not only of our team, but we're also changing the mindset of our patients. And their mindset is, when they go to their MD doctor, I mean, it's right on the wall. We're accepting no new patients. So they assume that we're not accepting new patients. But when we tell them, all of a sudden, bam, 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 we're getting new patients left and right.
So what do you think they don't ask? Do you think it goes back to the fear of rejection? I'm not going to
Absolutely.
ask you to dance because you might say no. So I'm just going to sit here and drink 3 pitchers of beer tonight. Or do you think it's a pride thing? They're too proud to ask for referral. Do you think it's pride or fear?
I think it's a little of both, pride and fear, and the rejection of we're being greedy to the patient, asking the patient for patient referrals. And it's just a simple matter of but we do it all the time in other aspects, but not directly. So we go see a good movie, or we go to a good restaurant, right? We want to tell everybody, right? But when we come to the dental practice, we forget that. And so if we just remind them of how great we are in our practice, and they go, oh yeah, I got other people I want to refer here, because I do the same thing when I go to a restaurant or a movie or a play or something. I tell everybody it was a great experience. That's really simply all it is. And some offices will do a contest, like they'll give away an iPad or something like that for the person who refers the most in that month or something like that, just to make it a little fun, make it a little more entertaining than just simply asking for referrals.
I want to ask you this. I'm just trying to cover all their excuses of why they're not, because they got so many. Their story. They create stories.
Their story, yeah.
And I've heard this. If I've heard it 10 times, I've heard it 100. Well, I'm never going to have a really big successful office because, Scott, the bottom line is I don't like to do surgery, and I'm not going to start pulling wisdom teeth. I'm not going to start placing implants. And I know that to be $1 million practice, I'm going to have to learn how to be an implant surgeon and pull wisdom teeth, and I don't like blood and guts. Do you think the successful dentists always have surgery skills, place implants, or do you see successful practices where dentists refer all that stuff out?
The majority of the practices I work with, they refer most of that out.
I know it. See, you say it, and they'll believe you. I mean, yeah. I would say that for years. The market makes them think that you can't do the big numbers unless you do all these fancy sinus lifts and bone grafts and place implants. And when I see $1 million practice with a dentist taking home $200,000-$300,000, they almost never have a CEREC. They almost never have a laser. They almost never place implants. They wouldn't know what a sinus lift was. If you told them to pull those wisdom teeth, he'd say, "Don't you realize this town has an oral surgeon?" I mean, so why do they believe that to buy shiny toys and do surgeries over their head instead of just saying, man, you can be really successful just having a family practice?
Well, yeah, part of it is always looking for the shiny object, right? And just trying to try something different than what they're doing now. We always talk about doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And so you try something different, but really, it really comes down to, coaching. It really comes down to having someone come in your office. Like this guy I went to last month, right? He's got 300 people appointed at Head and Hygiene. So I told him, and I just did. This is actually what I did on the plane. I told him, increase it by 10% a month. So the first month, this month, they're gonna add 30, and then 33, and then 36, and then 40, and then on and on and on until in December, they're going to add 85 onto that. And they're going to maintain and keep everybody that has been into the hygiene program. So at the end of the year, they're going to have 939 people appointed ahead in hygiene. That's just by doing 10% month over month over month. All of a sudden, they go from 300 to 933. That's 25% to almost 80%. It's a remarkable change by just doing it by 10%, right? So you're really focusing, if you really want to focus on that, you can really focus on that. What's the numbers on that? You might ask. Well, think about the number and labor that the front office has to do just to get those people back in the office. I just said $20 an hour. It's going to take them 400 hours to get all those people back in that they didn't do before, right? But automatically, if all those patients show up, and most of them will, it's the difference between 939 and 300 is 639. I know I'm throwing a bunch of numbers out, but I'm trying to get you to think about what's the value of doing just this one thing, right? 2 pro fees a year, $100 per pro fee. That's $127,000. Then they've got to come. They get an X-ray, and they get two exams that year. So just for 639 patients, just coming in twice a year, that's over $231,000, right? Just like that. You've done nothing but get them to point ahead. That's all you've done. And then you got to add on the restorative for that. So if a quarter of them have restorative issues, that's 160. That's 500. Let's say it's $500 per person. Well, that's another $80,000. So right there, just right there, when you add those two alone, it's over $311. I'll put that on my website so people can see that. $311,000 just pointing ahead in hygiene.
Now, you said you do a PPP on every project. What did that stand for?
A practice performance profile.
And if one of my homies listens to you and wants a practice performance profile, how does that happen? How much does that cost? How do they get that? Do you log into their computer? Do they?
No, I will. You know what? I will ask them for a few reports, and they'll email or scan and email those to me, and I will talk to them for about a half hour and talk to them about what I just see on those 3 or 4 reports that I asked them, and then I'll come in and actually do a complete performance analysis, the complete thing on the first day that I show up at their office. So that's how I do that.
You know, when I meet a dentist, I'll say, what composite do you use? And they'll say helium Muller. I'll say, what's the wear rate? They'll go 15 microns a year. I'll say, you know, what are you bonded in? What's a megapascal? They'll say 27 megapascal. Yeah. Then I'll say, how many people are scheduled for a hygiene appointment? And it's like blank. It's like everything they measure. And it's crazy because they know the wear rate of every filling they have, but their fillings don't wear down. Right. They know the bond strength of all their adhesive materials, yet none of their things fall. It seems like every number they know, they don't need to know, and has no relevance in their life. So my question to you specifically is, what numbers should they know? What numbers should my homies, if they're driving to work and they don't know these numbers, need to walk in there and get on Dentrix, EagleSoft, SoftDent, Open Dental? What should they be tracking specifically?
Wow, that's a great question. And I track a lot of numbers dependent, and like I said, it's different for every office in terms of what they are doing and how they're doing it. And so I look at different numbers. Like for this office, I'm going to really be focused on the appointing ahead. But I would say, as a generalization, in terms of what you should be looking at, you should be looking at production and collections, but you should be looking at the number of X-rays you're doing and the number of exams you're doing as well. But what the really key thing is, I'm looking for new patient by referrals. You know, I want every single new patient by referral. I want to know that. I also want to know how many people we appointed ahead in hygiene. I also want to know how many people we appointed ahead in restorative based upon all of the doctor's treatment plans and who didn't. I want a list of that. Also, you know what? I also want a list of the people who called in and said they're no longer coming here. I want to know who's not coming here anymore, right? I want to know all those kind of things, right? Instantaneously, I want to know all those kind of things, and really keep an eye on really what's the flow of what's the behavior style, what's the behavior of our patients. Are they coming in, and how are they coming in, and are they accepting treatment, and are they appointed ahead in hygiene or in the restorative when we do that treatment? And are they, if we say they need perio, scaling and root planing, are they accepting it, and are they following through, and are they maintained in perio maintenance, or they just fall off the chart after a couple of perio maintenance treatments, which is typically what happens.
I always think that the psychological situation of a dentist is that when their office is very stressful and falling apart and not working right, they just love to, at the end of Thursday, drive to an airport, fly away 1,000 miles, and go to some dental institute and pay them thousands of dollars because they're leaving their town, they're going to a resort, they're leaving all their problems behind, and they think if they just learn this one dental skill on a shiny new toy, they're going to come back and it's all fixed. And then when I go into those offices, what I normally always see is this. The staff will tell me these things, and then I'll say, well, what did the doctor say? Oh, I wouldn't tell them. It's like they're the people that could be helping the doc the most are afraid to say because they might get fired. They don't want to. They just don't want to go there. It's like there's several 4,000-pound elephants in the room that nobody wants to talk about. How do you? So it seems to me like, and that's why I don't do an office consulting. I wouldn't do your job for anything because when I started doing that a long time ago, it was crazy. I mean, I almost thought that every office I went into, it'd be best to lock the dentist in the basement and have the office manager hire an associate that'll do what she says, and we'd all live happily ever after. Then you could just throw a bale of money down in the basement to him each month. So that's really what I saw. So I almost think that for you to be effective, you'd almost have to be an armchair psychologist. I mean, it's about getting the doc's head into the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, just like anything else, especially dentistry, 80% is psychology and 20% is clinical. It really is. It really comes down to that. And so that's why I say when I go into an office, I look at every single office differently because they're all different. But at the same time, I have to work with the whole team. I have to have sit-down, realistic conversations about what's going on, why it's going on, and what we need to do to move forward. I've had tears in the office. I've had joy in the office. I've had tough conversations. I'm not afraid of the tough conversations. Because I know once we get beyond that, there's freedom. There's excitement.
But you know, it's the whole doctor's life. I mean, the lab man fears. He said 80. Every lab man tells me 80% of their dentists, they can get horrible impressions, and they can't call you and say, "Hey, Scott, you didn't give me enough reduction. I can't read. This is the shittiest impression in Phoenix," because you're just going to say, "Oh, screw you. I'm going to get a different lab." And then the supply reps from Benco and Burkhardt and Shine and Patterson, they're calling on 25 offices, and they walk in there and they just see obvious problems, but they're like, I'm just afraid 4 out of 5 times that if I said, you might want to think about this, they'd say, well, who the hell are you? And I'll get someone else. So so how do you address, like I say, what perplexes me the most is how do you get the doctor to go from this Saddam Hussein mode where if you tell me something I don't like, I'm going to shoot you, to I raise my hand, I want to be humble, and what is my team saying? What does my assistant think? What does my lab think? What does the supply person think? What do you think? How do you get them in that mode?
I first start off is I'll survey everybody in the office before I get there, including the doctor. So I'll survey the doctor, and I'll also survey his team online, so it comes directly to me. It doesn't go anybody else. So I get a flavor of what's going on in the office. The second thing I do is when I get there, I'll have a sit down with every single employee to get a flavor, because I can look at the numbers all I want. Matter of fact, I didn't have to come here to look at the numbers. You can just send them to me. I can figure things out. But what's really happening in the office is that 80-20%, that 80% psychology is the conversations that are going on amongst the whole entire team. So I really want to know what's really going on inside that. Then I'll have a one-on-one long hour-and-a-half conversation with the doctor before I even show up and say, hey, here's what your team is saying. Here's what you said. I already did your DISC behavior style. I know what your leadership style is. I already know what some of the things are going on here. What do you really want? What do you really want to do? What do you want to be? How do you want this to work? Because we're going to have some tough conversations on what needs to happen in order for you to achieve that. So I set them up for success rather than set them up for failure. I really set them up for, okay, we're going to deal with this. I mean, if you just go to read Good to Great by Jim Collins, he says one of those things is that going from good to great is just, realizing the brutal facts. I'm happy to realize the brutal facts, because once we realize the brutal facts, then we can set goals, we can set parameters, we can function on that. And will some team members leave? They always do. The people who are not on board see me coming in and see where we're going, see the directions we're going. There's always someone that says, I'm out, because I want to maintain the status quo the same way, do the same thing. I don't want, some of the team are afraid of me because I know their job. I know what they're supposed to be doing. I know I can read an AR report. I can read the outstanding insurance claims. I know exactly where to look to see where it hurts. And they when they see me looking at that, they just kind of go, oh, and they know I'm going to tell the doctor about what's going on and what needs to be improved and how that's going to happen. So one of the things that I really want to focus on when I'm going in a team is that I'm not here, right? I'm not here to point blame at or find faults. I'm here I ask myself two questions. The number one question I ask myself when I go on a dental practice is if I own this practice, what would I do? That's the number one thing I ask myself, right? And I take that, I embody that as if I'm the new owner of this practice, and I do that. The second thing I ask myself, Howard, is what am I missing? Because they can hide stuff, and they cannot say stuff, and they cannot say what the doctor told them and all this kind of stuff is. So I always want to figure out, if I was the owner, what would I do, and what am I missing? That keeps me up at night sometimes.
I think one of the funniest things is if you ask them, well, what's the biggest problem in dentistry today? The majority will say corporate dentistry. And it's like, man, I see them turning over more patients faster than any game in town. I mean, if you just had to say, well, who loses all their new patients the most? Well, it's corporate dentistry.
Probably.
I mean, I think it's hilarious that they think that's the biggest threat, when I really think it's the biggest joke. I mean, there's 460 DSOs, and some of them, the worst reputations in all of dentistry are owned by some of these DSOs.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a competition scarcity thing versus, and as you know as well as I do, there's an abundance here. I mean, we're doing our best to catch up with the number of dentists that we need, and the number of dentists especially the number of dentists that we need in rural America. It's unbelievable. I went to a practice in Bangor, Maine, a husband and wife team. They both work 6 days a week. Yeah. And they have a day off each where they're not seeing each other. They're just so overwhelmed.
I know, but they all want to go on the corner of big downtown Boston, downtown LA. They want to go to San Diego and have an office on the beach. Or they don't believe in demographics. They believe in, if you build it, they will come.
Right.
They saw it on Hollywood, so it must be true.
Yeah, it's such a shame, though, too, because there's such great opportunities out in rural America. It's not far from the big cities. And what do you do Monday through Thursday anyway in the evening? I mean, I literally told this one associate, buy this practice, drive up there on Mondays, drive back on Thursdays to San Francisco because you want to be in San Francisco, and you'll be the richest guy in San Francisco of all your classmates. Goes, nah.
Well, most people don't realize that the richest dentist in the world, Rick Workman, who owns the Heartland Dental, which is the most well-run DSO out there, he stole that play card right from Sam Walton. Sam Walton knew that Sears, Gibson's, TG&Y, and JCPenney were only going to be in Dallas and all the big cities, and when Sam Walton realized that nobody ever had one thought of going to Bentonville, Arkansas, he thought, really? So we're just supposed to buy out of a catalog because we don't live in Dallas?
Yeah.
And so Walmart was in 32 states before it hit a major metro, and Rick Workman he just crawled around all these small towns, and he was a 100 millionaire before anyone even knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And so do you like doing this?
I love doing what I'm doing.
Do you love it?
I can't believe how much I love doing what I'm doing.
And why do you love it? What do you love about it?
Well, number one, I love seeing results. I love seeing the team and the doctor gel together like they really should. Like they just didn't have the know-how or the thing to do it. I love to see how they increase their revenues without even adding an hour to their schedule. I love that. And I just, you know what? I would say a lot of my clients, I just figured this out. The average client stays with me 34 months. The average.
That's 3 years.
Almost 3 years. And I only start with the idea of doing it for 1 year. And the reason is because I become a part of that office, and I become a part of their families. I know their kids, I know their spouse. I become a part of their family. They become my friends more than anything else. But I'm still a coach, and I still hold them accountable. Don't get me wrong, I'm not floating away on that. But I think every time I come into their office, they know that I'm going to do both what's great and what needs to be improved, and they like that because they've got something to go on. So
I'm just curious. There's a lot of dentists out here. I mean, there's 150,000 general dentists in the United States, 25,000 specialists, I think. But anyway, is there any particular profile to who's most likely to use you as a consultant? I mean, or is it mostly older 60-year-old guys getting their practice ready to sell? Is it young kids who just bought a practice? Is there any particular profile of who's using you the most?
No, I would say I've done all of those, right? I just got back from a dentist who's 76 years old, and I've also have a dentist who's been out of dental school for 2 years. So I do the gambit. I would say this: the majority of my clients come from referrals. And that's why I'm telling you guys in terms of patient.
This interview came from a referral.
Huh?
This interview came from a referral.
Yes.
I had several people call me and say, "You need to do Scott."
Yeah. So most of them come from referrals. I would say the majority of my general, because I do specialists too. The majority of my general dentists are first-time buyers of a practice. That's what I do the most, probably. And that's why they stay with me for so long, because they realize I couldn't have never gotten this far, this fast, as quickly without them.
So. Yeah, I know this question is going to sound crazy, and we're almost out of time, but I wanted an objective person outside. The dentists always say the hygienist is crazy. The hygienists always say the dentist is crazy. So between the dentist, the hygienist, the assistant, and the receptionist, rank them from the batshit craziest to the least craziest in the office. When you're going in their office, who rank the crazy skill?
It depends.
Because I would say the batshit craziest is always Doc, and then next up is the hygienist. Then next up is the assistant, and it seems like the only normal person in the office is always the front desk. So I just lost all my podcast viewers.
Yes, you sure have.
Since,
and I'm not gonna jump on that one at all.
I've never had anybody email me that listen to my show that wasn't just a dentist, but I do, and I think it's and I've said this before on my show. I think it's the adverse natural selection. I've made this case several times that in college, if you were well-rounded, joined a frat, had a girlfriend, went to all the games and made A's, B's, and C's, well, you would never be a physician, a dentist, or a lawyer. But if you sat in a library for 3-4 years like me, and all you did is study, and you made straight A's, and so it's this natural selection that you're dealing with all these dentists that the only way they could get to this party is they had to be batshit crazy smart, lived in a library and memorized calculus, physics, geometry. And I just don't see well-rounded communication, management skills. I mean, you almost think they should have only accepted people for the actual dental office. They should have only accepted people from frats and sororities and whoever got the most DUIs or went to the most ball games or was in the band or whatever. So, you know what I mean? So you have this natural selection of some tightly wound, scientific-minded people, and then they are thrown out into a dental business. I'll give you another example. My two older sisters are Catholic nuns. When I first came out with my 30-day dental MBA, my sister, Mary Kay, whose name is Sister Anna of Yahweh, she read it and she said, you know what? She goes, it's the same problem in the priesthood. They go to the priesthood for 8 years and all they do is memorize the Bible. And then an hour after they graduate, they're thrown into a parish with an elementary school, upset teachers, losing money, all these problems. And this Catholic priest is like, what the hell did 8 years of seminary school didn't prepare me? I'm supposed to talk to a teacher and a parent and a budget. And so she was taking my 30-day dimly and sending to all these young priests. And these priests were all writing me letters saying, I learned more about how to run a parish listening to your dental MBA tapes than I ever learned in 8 years of the priesthood. So I think it's a tough problem. They selected people with skills for math and physics, and now they're in the people business.
And that's why I come in, because I teach them all those other skills. And I help them with the communication skills, and I help them realize where they are in terms of their leadership skills and really get them to hone in on their strengths rather than they beat themselves up over and over again on the weaknesses, which they'll never improve. So I want to really get them to get really there. I had several of my teams go to Tony Robbins' event and just come back just amazingly happy and amazingly on board with the doctor's vision and making all those shifts that they needed to make, because what did they do? They changed their focus, right? And they changed the meaning they attached to what was happening, and they started doing things betterly. Better.
I like betterly.
You like betterly?
Yeah, I named my book Uncomplicate Business, and the reason I went with Uncomplicate is when I typed it out on the Word document, it gave me the red squiggly line that it wasn't right, and I said, now I know it's right.
That's awesome.
If Microsoft Word didn't like it, I knew it was for me.
Exactly. So it's my biggest fun challenge for me is to take a doc that's like that and make that doctor into the communication, fun-loving communication guru with not only with his team but also with his patients and his whole community. I love that because it's possible. They just didn't learn it or didn't know how to do it or was afraid to jump out there. You know, fear is a great inhibitor.
And what's funny is we're 2 minutes over time, so we got to wrap this up. But what's funny is when I look at the most successful dentists out there, and I crawl back to their life and think, what really helped this person most? It wasn't the math and the physics and the chemistry. It was that she was a waitress through undergrad and she was serving table. That's where she learned people skills. Or he was a bartender. Or, you know, I've always joked for years that dentists would all probably double their income if they got a part-time job on Friday and Saturday nights being a bartender and just learning how to talk to people at a bar.
Right.
And if they ever just got relaxed and became a waitress or a bartender or something in the people business, and
or hired a coach.
Yeah. But hey, dude, seriously, thank you so much for coming over here. I know you're a busy man, and
appreciate
coming over here to let my son Ryan and me harass you for an hour.
Thank
you for all that you've done for dentistry. And can I promise my townies that someday you might build an online CE course on Dental Town?
I will definitely do that. Let's sit and
I think you know I just want to get it done. I think I think if the course was focused for the whole team, and I think if you watch these, you do a lunch and learn. Go Choke and Puke, get some pizza, burgers, sit your staff down, and watch a presentation together, and get the whole team on board and say, we're going to do this. We're going to bring in a coach, and we're going to go to the next level. Just be humble about it. Be honest. Be humble. Just tell them, I'm stressed out. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm upset. Something's going to change. And then what's neat about Scott is he's the bad guy. You're just the innocent dentist who raised their hand, said, I need help, and then let Scott come in and deal with all the complex people.
Eventually, they all love me in the end.
I bet they do. I love you. Thanks for coming down, buddy.
Thank you.
All right.
It.